it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe or we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
Where am I? Where am I? Come on, I gotta get myself. Well, you can look at Kirsten out for a minute or two if you want to. I'm sure he doesn't mind that. You can look at that graphic while we're on it all together. Are we really going there? Are we really going back to regime change? Is that the next move? Holy goodness, that could be a problem. Now I'll give you the live feed. All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being with us on the episode. We have a lot to talk about. Yeah, why don't I just throw that back up there too? What the living hell? I got so many things I want to share with you on this 21st morning of the 7th month in the year of our Lord, 2026. Yeah, let's just pop this right back up there again. Trump weighs Iran war expansion as fresh U.S. strikes target Hormuz shipping threats. We're going to have to talk about that. What does all that mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. And it's what a lot of us have been calling for instead of the deal, got to make a deal nonsense. Yeah, ramp it up. Crank it up. Let it roll, as the song goes. And by the way, I love the dancers. You guys are amazing. You see, every time I look down at my screen that has the live stream, the live chat on it, I just smile. You guys are having so much fun with it. Yeah, the deal stuff has got to go. We've been talking about this. They've got to ramp this up, and they've got to crank it up and let it roll. And it's got to be for real. It's got to be for real. But does it mean real regime change? That's a question, because we've got some history that has not been great as far as trying to institute regime change in that region. That's just the reality of it. I did a little bit of checking, a little bit of researching, a little reminder of some of the things that we have done in that region as far as trying to force regime change. It's a different world over there. It's a different culture. That's just the reality of it. I'm not trying to be cynical in any way, especially since I'm the one calling for getting rid of the IRGC. But it's more like I don't want to institute our own government or our own, like we tried to do in Iraq. I don't want to try to like force a Western style democratic form of government in a Middle Eastern nation, particularly one that's been racked by the Islamic Revolution since 1979. That takeover. I'm not saying we can do that. I'm not saying we should even try, or if we could do that. But I'm just pointing out that what we need to do is get rid of the IRGC. There's no two ways about it. They're the reason why the Iran conflict has lasted as long as it has. They're the reason why there have been some 17 dead soldiers now after what just happened over the weekend. And we're learning the names of these heroes who were killed and just simply for being on a base in Jordan, because that's what Iran does. President Trump correctly pointed out Iran no longer has a navy or an air force, but what they do have is a whole bunch of missiles that they can fire from Iran, and they can reach Western Europe. They can certainly reach into Israel, obviously. And they're trying to see if they could reach North America, but they're going to launch missiles, and that's virtually all they have left. But they're dangerous, and they're obviously accurate as they struck the U.S. base in Jordan. So, we're in a place now where we kind of have to figure out, can we take out Iran's the biggest impediment to Iran being brought to heel, which is what has to happen. Can we take out the IRGC and then just let them figure out how to choose new leadership? Because when we try to force Western or American style, like I said, democratic governments it's like a square peg in a round hole. Trying to do that in the Middle East just doesn't work. So can we take them out without actually forcing quote unquote regime change? But that's exactly what the headlines were last night, with the latest on this. And I just want to share a little bit of it with you. Overthrowing Iran's regime has returned to the agenda in parts of the Trump administration after diplomatic efforts appear to have failed. I'm quoting from Fox now. No, I'm sorry. They're quoting the Financial Times. Quote, elements of the Trump administration are once again flirting with Plan A, which is to topple the Iranian regime. In its analysis, the Financial Times also said efforts to encourage an internal uprising in Iran were back on Washington's agenda. Now, I'm just going to be 100% honest about that. That's one of the reasons why I'm concerned about the idea of regime change. We don't often get even civilians on our side if the civilians are going to be slaughtered. Okay? One of the biggest obstacles we faced in Iraq, and I don't want to go back and talk about the reasons for the war in Iraq. That's going to be debated and deliberated and litigated for decades to come. But when we did go in with the idea of regime change, toppling Saddam Hussein, which ultimately was done, and instituting a free democratic government run by the people there, that was not done, in large part because there was an insurgency among the Iraqi citizens. There was an insurgency, even though most of them hated Saddam Hussein for making them live under his authoritarian tyrannical regime, there was still a problem getting everybody on board. Well, that's probably going to be the case in Iran, too, if you consider the fact that anybody who has even protested against the supreme leader, the Ayatollah, and the mullahs who run that country, anybody who protested and demanded some sort of freedom, some sort of liberty, some sort of return to secular life, the way Iran had, prior to 1979, anybody who even suggested those things were killed. The numbers have gone up and up and up as we've talked about it. About 4 or 5 months ago, we talked about they killed some 30,000 Iranian citizens. The last time President Trump talked about it, it was up to 50,000. I don't know if that's exactly right. I don't think they've been in a position to execute tens of thousands in the last couple of months, but who knows? But the numbers, whether they be 30 or 50,000, it's enough to throw a scare into the Iranian people to the point where they wouldn't exactly be helping us facilitate said regime change. And that's a real big challenge here. The report in the Financial Times added that an earlier Israeli proposal to arm Kurdish groups opposed to Tehran was rejected by the administration, but could now be revived as policymakers search for alternative options. And that's it. That's the core of it right now, is just that apparently regime change. I hear the words regime change, like I said, and I get a little bit nervous because I'm looking at the history of what we have in the region. So I pulled a few notes up I want to share with you. A regime change policy in Iran, especially one relying on external pressure, like our strikes, proxy arming, like the Kurds, which was right in that Financial Times piece, or incitement of internal uprising rather than full-scale invasion and occupation, would face severe challenges. And I don't want a full-scale invasion and occupation either. Our options here are few. Let's be real. Our options here are not, myriad. We have very limited ways that we can do this. And one of them would be forcing regime change. But again, it would take a lot of pressure from within, not just from without. And I don't know if we can make that happen, given, like I said, the fear that the population has there against turning against the regime and the IRGC. It's a legitimate question. So here's the historical track record in the region. In 1953, Iran, so what is that, 26 years before the Islamic Revolution that took over that country and turned it into the terror-sponsoring hellscape that it is right now. In 1953, Operation Ajax took place. A CIA-backed coup against Mossadegh restored the Shah to power. Short-term success for oil interests and anti-communism, but it fueled deep resentment, contributed to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and created lasting anti-U.S. sentiment that defines the current regime. So in 1953, we had what led to 1979, and what happened in 1979 has led to where we are in 2026, a full-on, and not just in 2026, but a full-on terror-sponsoring regime that is hell-bent on destroying Israel and essentially bringing back the idea of a one world government under Sharia law, a global caliphate, which is what Iran has been trying to force, happening. It's why they sponsor their proxies. It's why they fund the Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and so forth. Boko Haram gets money in Africa. So we tried that in 1953. It kind of helped bring us where we are. Then Iraq in 2003. As you know, rapid overthrow of Saddam, but there was no coherent post-war plan. Led to insurgency, sectarian civil war, massive costs, trillions of dollars, thousands of U.S. lives were lost. Iran's increased influence and the rise of ISIS also resulting from that. So that was just, it was, again, I don't want to debate the merits of why we went in and what the intelligence showed and what President Bush said then and what Colin Powell said about a slam dunk and all the rest. But the reality is we did force regime change there by deposing Saddam and ultimately having him hanged. But it hasn't been like some sort of Western democratic government has been installed there in Iran or in Iraq. In 2011, Libya, air power like we're using now in Iran, helped topple Gaddafi with minimal U.S. boots on the ground, clearly. But the result was Libya, a failed state, civil war, weapons proliferation, migrant crisis, and ongoing instability. No stable successor has emerged. You getting the track record here? Afghanistan, from 2001 to 2021, the longest U.S. war. The Taliban was ousted initially, but they just went into hiding, probably into Pakistan, which is where Osama bin Laden ultimately was found and killed. But the Taliban, ran off. So, look, we ran the government out, and then we're going to replace it with what? Some sort of a Western democracy? Not exactly. Nation building failed amid corruption, ethnic fractures, and a resilience of insurgents. The withdrawal that Biden oversaw in 2021, of course, led to swift Taliban return with $90 billion in U.S. Military equipment, transport vehicles, and so forth. So the common pattern among all four of those attempts at changing regimes and installing, Western favoritism, if you will, or Western supporting democracies in those countries. It has failed every single time. So what does that bring us? It brings us to a question of whether or not President Trump really wants to pursue regime change. And again, it's not a stated policy. It is just what is being said in some circles inside the administration, according to that report from the Financial Times, that maybe, just maybe, we're not going to be able to bring the current regime to the table. So we're going to have to oust the current regime and let a new one emerge and then bring them to the table. And as bad as both of those ideas sound, I think the latter is going to be the one that has to be pursued, because the current regime has obviously proven they don't want a deal. As many times as President Trump looks into that camera and says, they called me, they really want a deal. No, they don't. All they want to do is drag their feet, let this thing, play out a little bit longer, give you a little bit of FaceTime, or give JD, or give Kushner and Witkoff, more FaceTime. Also, they can continue to strike ships in the strait, and so on and so forth. So there's no easy answer here. And this is the part where I feel very badly for President Trump about. President Trump didn't really know what to expect here. I think he probably did underestimate Iran's strength and what they could do to continue to gum up the works, particularly as it pertains to global energy costs with their attacks on the strait. Now their attempts to blockade Saudi Arabia ports from being accessed by ships. I think maybe a little bit, but he also didn't have a choice, because I firmly and will continue to believe what Marco Rubio laid out on behalf of the administration 5 months ago when this whole thing started. The Iranian missile buildup was going to make them impervious to any outside forces. They were going to be able to continue their nuclear development and to build that bomb or multiple bombs. They were going to be able to enrich, because they were barricaded in by a missile arsenal that, quite frankly, was pretty unbelievable in terms of how many and how much power they were amassing. They had to be stopped at the time they were. So President Trump, I firmly believe, did the right thing by going in. But does that mean we really knew and had a firm grasp of exactly what the Iranians were capable of in defending themselves? We look at it and we say, hey, we sank their Navy. Okay, great. That's a great starting point. Hey, they don't really have an Air Force anymore either. Fantastic. But they still have drones, explosive drones, and they still have missiles to beat the band. Tons of them. And so they perhaps are a little bit more formidable than we thought they were. And that's why they're striking ships in the strait. They still have mine-laying craft in the strait. They still have the ability to blockade other international ships from accessing Saudi Arabia, which will further destabilize the world energy market and the oil market in particular. Price of a barrel of oil, which had been down to 60-something just a few weeks ago, when it looked like we were going to have some peace, now back up into the 80s. Gas dropped down to $3.20 or whatever, and now it's back up to $4. And all of this, of course, is putting pressure on us and putting pressure on the West to try to get this thing done and to maybe accede to some of the demands of the Iranians. So it is a very, very tough spot we find ourselves in now. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on with Peter Kirsanow. Kirsanow will be joining us at the top of the hour. You saw his smiling face there in the opening graphic, right? There he is. Kirsanow will talk to us about regime change and potential regime change here in the United States. Wait, what? I'm not talking about an overthrow of Donald Trump, but I'm talking about 2026 and largely 2028. Are we about to see a regime and an ideological change in the form of communists and socialists? Because guess what? They are not slowing down. They being the left in their pushing and promotion of this democratic socialism that seems to have just taken that party by storm. Let me share this with you. This is, where did she go? Trying to find, here she is. This is a far left. Let me share the tab with you so you can kind of see what I'm looking at here. This is the latest far left nut. This isn't New York City. This isn't Los Angeles. This is another blue hellscape called Denver, Colorado. Another Democrat socialist immigrant candidate says the quiet part out loud about her party's plan on migration. How many people here know about the great replacement theory? I would imagine most of us do. Most of us have learned, studied, heard, whatever, a little bit about the great replacement theory to replace our population here in the United States, our native population, with massive migration. Obviously, Biden tried to do that in 4 years and was highly successful. Shouldn't say tried. Give credit to Biden where it's due. Biden attempted to destroy the United States of America by importing tens of millions of illegal aliens. He succeeded. Tens of millions came in. At least 10, maybe 20 million illegals came in. Big part of trying to destroy this country so that it can be fundamentally, what did his puppet master call it? Fundamental transformation of America. That's what Barack Obama wanted. And that starts with attacking what is America. I ask you, what's America? How do you fundamentally transform America? What is America? Is America two borders to our north and south? Is America two coastlines? Is America some geographic formation? I am America. You are America. The people are what make up America. So when Barack Obama came in 2008 with this evil plan of fundamentally transforming America, it was fundamentally transforming us, the people. You understand? When you have a globalist, which is what Barack Obama is, in which everybody in his orbit is, from the donors, the power brokers behind the scenes like Soros, and the globalists working in the globalist organizations who have always wanted open borders. When Barack Obama became president and started that fundamental transformation of the United States from being a secure republic to an open borders globalist nation, or a lack of a nation, but a part of the globalist order, he was transforming you and me by replacing us. The great replacement theory is no longer a theory. Sometimes they say it out loud. And this is the individual I was talking about, Milat Kairos, Democratic nominee for Colorado's 1st congressional district in Denver, spoke at Denver's Wa'ala Tigray event. I don't even know what the flying hell that is. But all you do know is what she said while she was there. She spoke about her experience as a Black immigrant living in America and about her successful campaign. She's born in Ethiopia. Just weeks before her father was selected in the United States diversity visa lottery. So he and the whole family got to immigrate to Colorado. The diversity visa lottery, one of the biggest travesties and mistakes in this country's history. In June, this 29-year-old Democratic socialist defeated 15-time incumbent Democratic Representative Diana DeGette and is now eschewed to become the next congresswoman in this very heavily blue district. In other words, it doesn't matter who's running as a Republican, not a chance. So this person is on her way to Congress, just like so many others. And she is actively and audibly promoting the great replacement theory. She screams it out loud. Watch and listen.
I think it's particularly important, not just for our community in Tigray, but communities of the global South, period, right? There's a certain reckoning that we are going to have with the global world order as it exists today, and the way that it fundamentally will have to shift going forward.
I just want you to listen to those words again. They should chill you to your core. Honestly, listen.
Period, right? There's a certain reckoning that we are going to have with the.
There is a certain reckoning that we are going to have, the freest nation in the world. There has to be a reckoning because
global world order as it exists today.
The global world order needs to change. There has to be a reckoning with the way the global world order exists today. The United States cannot continue to lead the world, free world and otherwise.
and the way that it fundamentally will have to shift going forward, right? The responsibility.
Fundamental shift. Tell me, is that synonymous with fundamental transformation? We heard that in 2008 when His Holy Barakness came in. It's 2026, and they're still moving in the same direction.
That we have as Americans, the recognition that is going to be required of us, of the exploitative and extractive nature that we play on the global scale. And
the United States is exploitative. Did you hear that? The United States has to be stopped because of our exploitation of the world.
As Americans, the recognition that is going to be required of us, of the exploitative and extractive nature that we play on the global scale. And
exploitative and extractive nature. We take, we don't give. We don't give, we take from the rest of the world. We exploit the rest of the world. You know, for years, I have been calling this on my radio program and now on this podcast. I have been talking about the United States as what I describe it to be, the greatest force for good in the history of human civilization. That doesn't mean it's perfect. Never has been. Sins of our past, however, have been atoned for billions of times over. We're not perfect. We can't be. But we have been the greatest force for good in the history of mankind. We have tried to export goodness around the globe. When there are impoverished people, we feed. When there are people being slaughtered and attacked, we defend. We have become the world's global police force, its biggest benefactor. We have provided goodness and opportunity for people who have no chance whatsoever on their own for the entirety of our existence. We are not an extractive nation. We don't extract things from other people. We give, and then we generate. And sometimes we fall into massive debt because of our largesse, because of our willingness to assist and to help. We have a $39 trillion national debt, a debt that none of us can wrap our brains around. If we had a $9 trillion national debt, it would be devastating. It's 39. And it's because of our generosity, sometimes very, very misguided through programs like USAID. But the point is, we have not been extractive in nature the way this globalist wants you to believe. We have been a contributor, not an extractor from the rest of the world. Let's continue.
Global stage is only going to be challenged if we are getting represented by people who understand that on a fundamental level.
The only way we're going to be able to challenge what the United States is to replace the United States. And what did we just say? What is the United States? It is not geography. It's not soil. It's people. The American people would have to be replaced for her to have her vision.
Right? And that means getting more immigrants. And
what does it mean?
It's getting more immigrants into office. That means getting more people.
Getting them where?
And that means getting more immigrants into office.
Getting more immigrants into office.
That means getting more people who have heritage in the global South into office, because that's where.
Getting people, immigrants from the global South, not the American South, from the global South into office to fundamentally transform the United States of America.
Those decisions are made specifically.
Exactly what Obama planned, bragged about, announced, and was elected to do by the beyond ignorant left, the Democrat Party. We've already got Mamdani. We've already got a host of new socialists and communists ready to come into Congress because they have already won their primaries and they are not going to be stopped by Republicans Republican opponents in these deep blue socialist districts. They're on their way. The Congress is in jeopardy. The presidency will be in jeopardy. 2026 and 2028. We are in some serious, serious danger. So, I've been pondering this for a couple of days now. I think it was on Sunday. My son asked me, we were sitting down having a meal, and my son asked me, if the United States fell, where would we go? He literally asked me, where would we move to around the world if the United States fell to communism, to the type of, great replacement that this lunatic in Denver and all of the lunatics on the radical left are seeing for this country? If the United States ceased to be what it is, where would we go? Now, my first gut response to that would be, of course, we would fight. We would stay here and fight for it the way they did in 1775. And of course, into the Declaration and the start of the Revolutionary War in 1776, we would fight for it. But that was a little bit different. It was a little bit different. That was trying to build something that did not exist. And the challenges were extraordinary. We can't even imagine. This is trying to hold on to what already exists. And if we lose political power, how will we fight it? If we lose political power, it would have to be fought with military power, wouldn't it? It would have to result in a civil war. I don't want a civil war. I also don't want to live under communism or socialism, because we've seen it time and time and time again. I created this graphic some time ago, the tale of the tape, what capitalism brings versus what socialism brings and has brought everywhere it has been done. Death, famine, starvation, torture. The worst type of oppression you can imagine. We talk about that a lot, don't we? So I would say we have to fight it militarily, meaning in terms of a civil war. If we were unable and unsuccessful in doing so, however, or for those who just simply cannot fight, where would you go? That's what he asked me. My son said, where would you go? Asked me that 20 years ago, I would have said probably England, maybe Canada. If you had to flee somewhere while the United States was completely swallowed up by borders erased, communist rule, no private property, no freedom, no First Amendment rights, no Second Amendment rights, those things came to pass, where would you go? I would have said probably some Western European country, maybe Canada. Not in 2026. Canada is a far left, I don't want to call it a hellhole, but it is no better than what we're describing right now, pretty much. The UK? What are you kidding? Western Europe is completely changed. There's no longer free speech in the UK. There is no Second Amendment there. Overrun by millions of illegal migrants from the Middle East, Muslim takeover. Same thing in France. Same thing in Germany. Largely the same thing in Italy. Where would you go? 20 years ago, I might have said Australia. Not today. Australia has been compromised in much the same way those Western democracies that we just described have been. This is what Reagan meant in that video. And I'm not going to play it again for you now because every time I play it, I get a strike from freaking communist YouTube. But from the Reagan speech that I played for you a couple of different times over the course of the last, month or so, with different guests on as well to get their takes on it. And Reagan talked about speaking with somebody or another, and the two of them were in a room with a Cuban defector who came to the United States. And they were talking about, communist Cuba and what this individual who had escaped Castro and the communist, nation. And the two men, President Reagan and the other man, said they were talking about how fortunate they are to live in a great country like this. And the Cuban defector, the escapee from Castro, said, "You're not lucky. I'm lucky. I had somewhere to go," which was the United States. And Reagan then used that point to make the larger point that he's right. Because if we fall to communism the way Cuba did, and so many of those other socialist countries did, where do we go? There's nowhere else left to flee to. So I went ahead, since my son asked me that question and I didn't have a really good answer for him, I fed that question into two different AI models to see what they would come up with. And here was the way I worded it. I was asked yesterday, if the U.S. goes socialist communist and ceases being the world's leading nation for true liberty, where in the world would I move to escape it? With the UK just replacing Keir Starmer with another far-left socialist, far-left socialist promising Mamdani-style big government socialist control, and with most of Western Europe being overrun by radical Islamic migrants, I have no idea where we'd go. What would you recommend? I asked two different AI models that question, and I'm going to give you what they said. And I want you to think about this right now. In fact, I'm going to look in the chat. I'm going to look in the chat in a minute, and I want to see what you guys say. Again, already answering number one, we stay and fight. Okay, but not everybody can stay and fight. And if you thought that your family was about to be, thrown into a gulag or starved to death because of, this is what socialist control brings to all of those other nations and so forth. If you felt like the danger was so great that your family was in jeopardy and you had to get them out, where would you take them? So yes, number one is we'd fight. Number two is, okay, when you have to protect your family, and if you could take them somewhere else, where would you take them? Where would you flee to? Okay. And I'm just looking to see in the chat what people say. Somebody said Poland. Interesting. Moving to a nation that is so close to communist Russia. There's constantly in jeopardy, as a NATO nation of being attacked. I'm just checking to see others. I see everybody talking about their guns. We're going to fight. We're going to fight. We're going to fight. Okay, I get it. I said that already. It looks like there are trolls there now too, so I don't know exactly who they are. Give me the names of the trolls. We'll try to get rid of them. You guys got to tell me. I'm watching this. All right, let me come back and talk to you about who we would or where we would go, I should say, and what the chat bots say, and then I want to get your thoughts. Let me come back to that after I take a short time out and deal with these trolls.
Clock in at midnight, vest on, boots laced. Another name on the paper, another hard case. Got a wife back in Lubbock, kids in their Sunday best. I ain't some villain in a movie. I'm a man doing my best. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw the line in the sand. Saw you playing for cameras, shoving phones in my crew, spitting words like traitor, like you know what we go through. When you circle that transport, like it's some kind of game, there's a scared little girl in the backseat, you don't even know her name. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. Then you shove them into harm's way. You turn a bus into a battlefield. I'm just trying to get them home today. Call me every name you can think of, I'll still show up when it hits the fan. When the dust clears, when fear's near, we'll see who really ran. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand.
Okay, I wanted to get rid of some of the trolls in the chat, the live chat there, because I wanted to ask people where they want to go, and so that's why we needed to do that. So I'm looking at, and I'm not seeing a whole lot. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, "No, I want to stay and fight. No, I want to stay and fight." We've already said that. Now I want you to literally ask yourself, though. This is what my son asked me: where would we go if the United States fell, if it crumbled? Which is what the leftist goal is. If they were successful and it crumbled and you had to flee for your life, where would you want to go? So I asked the two chat bots that very question. And I'm going to give you a little bit of, before I give you the name of the first choice of the first one, I'm going to give you a little bit of the reason why. This country that it recommends consistently ranks at or near the top of both economic freedom, heritage number 2 in 2026, and broader human freedom indexes. Cato Institute, for example, combining high personal liberty with direct democracy that lets citizens veto big government excesses and maintains strict selective immigration that prioritizes skills, integration, and cultural compatibility over open borders. Sounds pretty positive. Economic and personal liberty, strong property rights, competitive cantonal tax competition, reliable rule of law, limited central government. The referendum system acts as a check on the socialist drift. Immigration and social cohesion, far tighter immigration controls than Western Europe. Quotas, integration requirements, and a political culture that treats national identity as legitimate. Means it has avoided the scale of parallel societies and radicalization problems common in France, the UK, Sweden, Germany, etc. And then practical reality, it's extremely safe, high trust, excellent infrastructure, and healthcare. English works in business and cities. Downsides are high cost of living. You do need a solid income or assets. Residency is not easy. Job offers, significant wealth, or lump sum taxation options in some cantons or other qualifying paths. And the languages, primary languages, are German, French, and Italian. But if the United States truly lost its liberal character in the classic sense of liberalism, not the political sense, this country is one of the few remaining places that still treats limited government and individual rights as operational principles rather than slogans. All right? Where do you think it is? Chatters? What country do you think this first chatbot that I went to is, based on the description I just gave? And I'm looking at the screen right now. Sorry for the distraction here, but I want to see if people can figure it out. Lisa says Norway, but Norway is socialist, but seems to afford it. Norway is not socialist. None of the Scandinavian countries are socialist. That is a myth. That is an absolutely debunked myth that not enough people are aware of. They like to use that. The left likes to use the Scandinavian countries as evidence that socialism can work in order to try to push it here in the United States, trying to say, we're not talking about Mao, Chinese socialism. We're talking Cuban socialism, Venezuelan socialism, Cambodian socialism, Vietnamese socialism. We're talking about, Norway socialism. No, not true. Don't buy that lie. We can talk about that another time. I could do an entire, in fact, I might have to do it. I might have to do an entire newsletter on that to debunk the idea that socialism can work because it's used in places like Norway. It is absolutely not socialist. Where do you think? Greenland, Jimbo says. Hungary, ESE says. Let's see. Sally says Switzerland. Bimilla says Switzerland. Hockey player Mike says Switzerland. Let me give you the second chatbot. I asked the same prompt of two different chatbots. And this one says this. This country has a highly decentralized government with substantial authority retained by cantons and municipalities. Referendums give citizens real control over government, strong private property rights, and deeply rooted gun culture, low crime, political stability, and excellent health care. It has resisted surrendering sovereignty to the EU. Freedom House currently rates it 96 out of 100, 96, not 96th place, a 96 like an A, 96 out of 100 score for political rights and civil liberties. The problems are considerable given the expense and the language barrier, although some business is conducted in English there. An American generally needs employment and substantial independent means or other qualifying connection to be able to move there. The verdict is it's the best place to preserve an affluent, orderly, liberty-oriented Western life if you can qualify to get in and to afford it. And here's what I say in response to that before I give you the answer here. And yes, both chatbots came up with the same answer as to the best place to go if we had to find a spot. My response is there are a whole lot of Americans who could not get in. And I'm not talking about because of the cost. I'm talking about the ability. That country practices what we should be practicing. The merit system. Nobody's allowed in unless you can contribute to the country in some way. Excuse me. Contribute to the economy. Contribute to their, to their own national success. To their culture. In other words, they don't let the third world just come pouring over the border the way Biden did. They're not using forklifts to raise razor wire to let the third world come into the country and leech off of a nation that's already trillions in debt. They're doing it the way we should be doing it. Hell yeah, maybe I do want to go. If I can't make the rest of this country understand that it cannot survive on its current path of unchecked. It's why we voted for Trump, to stop unchecked migration, illegal and legal. And to make sure that people who do come here, which is what Trump wants, and what Rubio has talked about and wants, and so many in the administration want. That's why so many of us are MAGA. Only people who can contribute. What do you bring to the table? Besides a bad attitude, hatred for my people, waving your flag of the country that you're fleeing, and coming here to absorb our resources. What do you bring to the table? Do you have a skill? Can you get a job? Can you do something to make this country better since you want to come to it? That's what the country we're talking about here, that both chatbots recommended the place to go to is, because they won't let a lot of people in if they don't have a skill. And that means there are millions of Americans who don't do here, who wouldn't be allowed to go there because they wouldn't want to do there either. You've got something to offer. They want you to come on in. Private property, gun rights, free speech, a lot of good stuff. A little bit more expensive to get there because, again, they don't welcome the third world. So the answer to that, by the way, from both chatbots, from ChatGPT and from Grok, I didn't ask Claude yet, or Gemini, or any of the rest of them, but both of those two that I did ask had pretty much the same messages as the reasons why. They say Switzerland would be the place to be. But again, Switzerland isn't going to be able to absorb everything and everyone. Which brings us back to the original point. Fighting for what we have here. President Reagan made that point so clear. Fighting for what we have here is the key. If we lose this country, if it falls to the socialists who are winning elections in far too many parts of the country right now, and don't use the word democratic in front of socialists. It's just socialist. If you want to change it in any way, shape, or form, say socialist/communist, because that's what they are. Vladimir Lenin once said it plainly. The goal of socialism is communism. Full-on, total centralized government control. Control the means of production, no private property, no ownership. That is the goal. Always. And if this country were to fall to it, there is no place for us to go. For the sake of thoroughness here, I'll give you who finished. Oh, I had a graphic made up for it too. Look at this. I actually wanted to ask you guys this today. If America ceases to be what we are, if America falls to socialists and communists, if the United States is no longer free, and a civil war is unsuccessful, and we don't win, and this is what we are now, and you can flee, what's your second choice? Where would you want to go? Number one, according to ChatGPT and Grok, number one is Switzerland. They disagree on the choices thereafter. ChatGPT says strong secondary options include Estonia. Ranks very high in the human freedom indexes and has one of the most competitive digital-friendly tax and business environments in all of Europe. It is EU, but culturally and policy-wise more restrained on migration than Western European core. Flat taxes, e-government that actually works, and a younger tech-oriented population make it attractive for someone who works online or runs a business. Language would be a barrier outside the younger professional class, and winters are real, but cost of living is far more manageable than Switzerland. They follow with similar commentary for Hungary and Singapore. That's ChatGPT. Switzerland, Estonia, Hungary, and Singapore in that order. Grok deviates a little bit after Switzerland. Grok says the next best ideological and practical escape hatch for all of us if the United States did fall to the socialists, the communists. Paraguay. Paraguay might be the closest match for someone prioritizing limited government, Christian culture, low taxes, and freedom from the European migration crisis. predominantly Christian, culturally conservative, territorial tax system and relatively low taxes, low cost of living and inexpensive property, very small Muslim population and little exposure to mass migration, food, water, and energy security, and residency is substantially more attainable than Switzerland or New Zealand. Temporary residency is available for up to 2 years and is the normal route to permanent residency. The trade-offs are weaker institutions, corruption, and even uneven infrastructure. Spanish-speaking, fewer top-tier hospitals, and less dependable rule of law than Switzerland or the United States. You would want to live near Asuncion and maintain international health insurance. Then it goes to Uruguay and Panama and New Zealand to round out their top 5. So I guess my point is Reagan was right. There's nowhere else to go, which is why we have to make sure that we fight and fight and fight until we can fight no more for this republic. Because if it falls, our options are extremely limited. There may be options, but they are extremely limited. And that's the reason why we cannot let it fall. But I played for you what I did. You've seen the results of the recent congressional primaries. Socialists are winning, not just on the coasts, but in the central United States as well, or central West. They're winning. And they're not going to be taken down in general elections by Republicans because they're in deep, deep blue regions and districts. They're going to Congress. They're going to have a block. The socialist voting block is going to exist in Congress. Used to be, we just had to worry about Bernie Sanders and ADC. Now, there could be a dozen of them or more. And that doesn't even count the undeclared socialists, the ones who won't call themselves that because of the political, what's what I'm looking for, the political danger that comes with that. That's not the right word. I'll find a better one later. Like Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown is straight up socialist, just doesn't say it. His policies indicate it. His 18 years in the Senate indicate it. And he wants to go back and continue it. So there are more and more and more of them than people even realize. All right, we have reached the top of the hour. That means we are going to be welcoming a guest to our program right after we do this.
If you're on Medicare and ever find yourself confused by your coverage, you're not alone. Medicare can be complicated, and the wrong information or no information at all can cost you time, money, and peace of mind. Hey, it's Bob France. For a Medicare professional I know and trust, Mark King. I've known Mark for years, and I've confidently referred Medicare recipients to him time and time again because he puts people first and explains Medicare in plain English. Mark takes the time to help you understand how Medicare works, what coverage you have, and what options might be available based on your needs. There's no pressure, no confusion, and no rushed decisions. Just honest guidance from someone who's been doing this for nearly 40 years and who knows this system inside and out. If you're unsure about your doctors, your prescriptions, or your overall coverage, Mark is the go-to guy you need. Call 440-832-8936 to get an appointment. That's 440-832-8936. And for user-friendly information, visit keepingmedicaresimple.com. I trust Mark King for answers, and you can too.
There he is. There's our man. That's one of the best AI replications of somebody that I've seen. That's my man, Mark. He looks just like him. And there's his phone number, 440-832-8936. Mark is a true MAGA warrior, and we respect and appreciate him so very, very much. How about this AI representation? What do you think? Not bad this time around, huh? I think he did a decent job. Trump isn't bad there, but I'm talking about the guy on the right, which is now the guy who is going to be front and center with me. Let's welcome our friend Peter Kirsanow back to the program. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Bob. Hey, that was pretty good. You know, I like that AI representation as opposed to the last one where it looked like kind of like me, but it was an imposter.
Well, remember the one that we did? I don't have it. I can't put it back up. The one of you and me arm wrestling over who hates the communists more or something like that. That wasn't bad either. And it even managed to turn your head to the side and grimace as you're struggling and losing. And I thought it was pretty, AI said you lost, by the way.
You have to show me how to do that.
I have no idea how it did that. I just took an actual picture of you, an actual picture of me, and I said, make these two guys arm wrestle. And it did its magic. That's why people are so enamored with AI. I mean, it's really quite remarkable what it's able to do. And it's also dangerous as hell.
Yeah.
Are you a UFC fan by chance?
I'll watch it from time to time. It's not like something. It's not must-see TV for me.
Okay.
I used to back in the day. I used to box a little bit, and I enjoy
Yep.
that. But
The reason I asked Peter is because there was a huge event 2 Saturdays ago. Conor McGregor, who is like one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest star in the sport historically, came back at age 30 something or whether to have another huge fight. And the fight lasted like 10 seconds because he came out swinging this massive wild kick, this roundhouse instep kick. And when he landed on his right foot, his knee buckled and he tore some meniscus and his ACL. But and it's been my son and I were ready to watch it. We were all about it. The guy's so highly entertaining and the fighting is so good. But it's obviously very, very disappointing. Well, so for the next 48 hours, a lot of people were immediately going to AI and regenerating different variations of what happened. And they all look the same as the one that actually happened. It's so good. And we're not just talking about a still photo of like you and I arm wrestling. It was live action. It had Conor McGregor swinging his leg and then turning around and grabbing a big box of money handed to him by Dana White because he just got $16 million for 10 seconds of work, and then, trotting out of the ring. And it's like, Peter, it's like scary real. It looked no different than real life. You cannot, the old adage of life imitating art. This is art literally imitating life and nailing it.
yeah, and there's some concerns there from a national security perspective. That's the first thing you think of course, but also
Yeah.
from a commercial perspective, because so many fakes can be generated, and I think competition between different companies can be affected in one way or another. I can't even predict how, but I'm sure people are thinking about ways they can get advantages as a result, unfair advantages, something that would be
Totally.
restricted by the FTC if they had jurisdiction over it.
Yeah, but they don't. That's the thing. They don't, and it's pretty remarkable what they're able to do. Anyway, that's how it came up with you and me, and a pretty good job they did of you and me arm wrestling. So, all right, Pete. So I'm going to bring you in on this. If the United States fell, if we elected too many communists, too many socialists, and they started to have power, and we started to see the principles of what made this republic what it is start to crumble. If they do erase the borders, and we do have open migration, and we do have, more and more centralized government and fewer and fewer liberties, and we descended into a civil war, and you had to get your family out safe. My son asked me this the other day in a much less complex way than I just did for you and for the audience, but he just said, so if we couldn't live in the United States, where would you go? And I pondered and pondered, and I couldn't think of it because ordinarily I would have said someplace that's an ally, like, England or something, in Western Europe. But Western Europe is falling before the United States falls, if that were to ever happen. So I didn't really have a good answer for him. So I plugged it into chatbots and asked them what they thought, where would be the best place for a disaffected American to go to try to still retain as many American rights as possible. Where would you go, Pete?
I'd go to Switzerland. It's not the best. There's no alternative to United States of America, obviously. Okay.
Of course.
You might go to Australia, for example, because it's culturally it's similar to ours, and there are freedoms there, and it's separated from the rest of the world. My daughter and her family live in Switzerland. It's phenomenal. Everybody has guns there. They've got mountains there that protect them, and it's just a beautiful place with very good. All of their systems work. Whether it's transportation systems, the rails, all that stuff, educational systems, you name it, it works there. And as I said, the people are, in the main, they're freedom-loving people, and in the main, they like Americans. Not everybody likes Americans.
Why did your daughter pick Switzerland?
Her husband is the chief physicist for CERN, the super collider, and he was a professor of physics. one of those guys who, I mean, he's way out there. But he was in Germany, and they met at Oxford. I don't want to go into the genealogy, but he's there now in Switzerland, just outside.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I'm not surprised, as smart as your daughter is, and apparently her husband is, and I can imagine what your grandkids are going to be like.
My grandkids they're almost, it's almost telepathic. It's the whole family. I don't know. I know she's my daughter because she kind of resembles me. Other than that, forget it. She went to my alma mater to rehabilitate the family name. And then went on to where'd she go? Oxford, got a couple of masters there, and then went to Harvard and got a couple of PhDs there. And I could tell you stories upon stories. I mean, it's truly remarkable. You like bragging about your kids, but this is for real. I can't come up with any. I cannot exaggerate her accomplishments.
That's amazing, and I guess that says a lot about, maybe these AI chatbots are pretty good, because your brilliant daughter chose Switzerland, and that's what both of these did. Both the things that I fed this into said Switzerland would be the best choice to try to replicate as much of America as you possibly can, and they seem to be better positioned to withstand that which would bring us down, which is unchecked migration, obviously. And we're doing our part to try to stop that here. That's why we elected President Trump, to stop the unchecked migration. We still have legal migration, though, in massive numbers. But everything that is, befalling Western Europe right now is what's going to start happening here. I mean, we literally just had some of the very same things, attacks on free speech and everything else that are happening in some of those other Western European countries are happening here. We have this massive Islamic population. We have this massive population of quote unquote democratic socialists growing as well. And Peter, their goals are not even hidden any longer. They're not. They're saying them out loud. I just played one of these socialists who's on her way to Congress. She's about to win the primary in Colorado, in Denver, and she is saying, the great replacement theory. We need to replace Americans with more and more migrants, particularly from the southern global regions, and their goal is literally to make us obsolete. At which point we have to say, where do we go? And I guess we're moving in with your daughter.
Yeah, it's infuriating, especially these immigrants who come here from, as Trump would say, S-hole countries, literally S-hole countries, like the one from out in Denver. I can't remember her name now, and I don't want to remember her name. I hope it's soon forgotten. But they come here from these countries.
She's from Ethiopia.
Yeah, they come from these failed S-hole countries, and they come here and then presume to lecture us as to how we're supposed to comport ourselves in our country. It's truly astonishing. And unfortunately for us, we've been so complacent and lax. We've allowed our educational system to degenerate into this socialist enterprise where we have these, my former assistant and I actually did a study years ago of the teachers' colleges and what they're doing there and what they're teaching. An examination needs to be done there because it's an indoctrination center in many respects. And then they come out and indoctrinate our kids in just sheer anti-American lunacy. It's a dangerous prospect. It's taken a foothold in much of the nation, not just in academia, and it's a major problem. We've got to address it.
This is the woman you were talking about, Melat Kairos. I played this 40-second clip for the audience last hour so I could comment on it and break it down line by line. I'll let you respond to it after you hear it.
I think it's particularly important, not just for our community in Tigray, but communities of the global South, period, right? There's a certain reckoning that we are going to have with the global world order as it exists today, and the way that it fundamentally will have to shift going forward, right? The responsibility that we have as Americans, the recognition that is going to be required of us, of the exploitative and extractive nature that we play on the global scale and the global stage, is only going to be challenged if we are getting represented by people who understand that on a fundamental level, right? And that means getting more immigrants into office. That means getting more people who have heritage in the global South into office, because that's where those decisions are made specifically.
Peter?
As I said before, I think she came from, was it Somalia or Ethiopia? I thought it was Somalia.
Ethiopia.
Yeah, but another S-hole country, again. And I hate to use terms like that, but it is. So she comes here and presumes to lecture us on how we're supposed to do these things. it's incredible. She's got these protections here in the United States to be an idiot. Okay, so she could be an idiot, but she shouldn't be exporting the idiocy to the rest of us. I think that we've got to have a full court press on these kinds of things because they have salience. When people start talking about giving things away, and then there's the disaffected out there. There's a certain percentage of the population that blames everybody else for their failures. And everybody else meaning the people who've been successful, the people who are currently in charge in businesses or in politics, you name it. And so this is how these types of revolutions, and I'm not suggesting there's going to be a revolution. I think it's going to be a slow motion one and has been for several decades. But nonetheless, if you've come from the immigrants that you get from like Eastern Asia, I've said this before, the folks that I've met just in my own life and at the Civil Rights Commission from places like Vietnam, Cambodia, Eastern Europe, places like Poland, Hungary, the old Soviet Union, boy, they get it, and they love America and everything it stands for, and the original understanding of America as the founding fathers. This kind of stuff is pernicious, dangerous, and I say, I sound almost histrionic here, and I generally don't get histrionic, but we must be about this because this kind of stuff devolves very rapidly. It's like a virus because who doesn't want free stuff? Who doesn't want an excuse for their failures? Who doesn't want a cushion that says, okay, I don't have to work that hard. No matter what, I'm always going to be taken care of. There are significant, it's part of human nature. Significant cohort's going to do that. So I think every time we get a chance, you, me, anybody who's got a public platform should address this and call these people out for what they are. That is evil, what she's talking about. And it really affects, she's sitting there and I don't know, it looks like very nice clothes and everything, telling us, all these different things that need to be done. And those things will will convert us. We've always been a great country, convert us into, again, an S-hole country. Avoid it at all costs, please. Talk to people who've come from those places and they will tell you don't want to go down this path.
No, I think you're spot on, Pete, as you usually are. The danger of somebody like this is the fact that she's not alone. She is one of many, many, many others. Like I said, many of whom are candidates already, and others who are supporting and working behind the scenes for those candidates to turn this country into what she just described. And you said you don't normally get histrionic, and you're right, you don't. You're usually very measured. But you said we have to be now. Do you think that the American people are riled up enough, histrionic enough to understand that if they vote for Democrats in 3.5 months, this is what's coming? I can't overstate that fact. This is the Democrat Party. These people are not outliers. They're not one-offs. They would be if there was only one of them. But the fact that there are a dozen of them or more who are already in Congress or running for Congress and winning primaries and so forth means this is what the Democratic Party is. So I've been asking people all morning long, if the United States falls, where would you go? And the answer has to be, don't let the United States fall.
Yeah.
And this is of paramount importance. A vote for Democrats in any race, a vote for Democrats this November is going to lead to the United States falling. Do you think people get that, Pete?
Yeah, no, I don't think a sufficient number do, and that's why I say we've got to get that message out in an emphatic and aggressive and urgent fashion. I can't tell you, I normally don't get angry about these things, but it's difficult for me to express quite how just out of my skull angry I am when I listen to that woman or the AOCs or the other morons, and that's what they are, or evil, and they could be very well be both. But the Bernie Sanders of the world, they would, Bernie Sanders went to the Soviet Union when no one was going to the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is the prime S-hole country, or was the prime S-hole. Now it's Russia, all right? We cannot go down this path. And unfortunately, it looks like we are very slowly, as I think it was Robert Bork had a book called Slouching Towards Gomorrah. And that's what we're doing. We're slouching. It's not headlong, but over several decades, we've been incrementally going down that path. And so I'm glad you are sounding the alarm. We've got a few others out there who sound the alarm, not as well as you, unfortunately. I think we have to have very, very educated and articulate and persuasive people out there sounding the alarm about this, because they've got 10 times more people doing their work than we have, because we're, frankly, we're going about our business. We are Americans. We go about our business. We're not thinking about the ideology of things. They are. That's what they do. That's all they do. And because they're not good at anything else, let's face it.
Well, you're right about that. That's a big part of it. Let me give you another one here, Pete. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy before, the man bun.
Right there, okay. Gary Larson, the great cartoonist, used to have, The Far Side used to have something called nature's warning signs. And you would have these panels where you'd have like an alligator or skunks and stuff like that, a rattlesnake, nature's warning signs. Anytime you have a guy looking like that, I'm sorry, I will say it. You see a guy like that, run for cover or call the cops right away. Have this guy placed in an asylum or something. I should talk, the bald guy with the weird facial hair. But my goodness, when you look like that, give me a break. Man bun.
You beat me to it. I was about to say you're just jealous you can't grow a man bun. But well said. And that's a brilliant. Where did the Far Side go? Is Gary Larson still alive? Get back to drawing. We need more because that was exactly right. All right. So this man bun is Gustavo Gordillo. He is the co-chair of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, aka Socialists, in New York City. And he was explaining to Martha McCallum why he and his family came to the United States from Peru. And I want you to respond to this when you hear it, Pete.
Your family came here from Peru, really in the middle of the heat of the Shining Path. They were Maoist communist guerrillas in Peru. So why did your family come to America?
The economic situation in South America and in Peru was in a really bad place. But I think that much of what we could say is responsible for that actually was the imposition of capitalism, and American imperialism in many cases is actually what brings immigrants to the U.S. coming out of Latin America. And
so they come here because they don't like the imposition of American imperialism in the country that they're in?
Yes, in many countries.
So they come here.
In many countries, there have been undemocratic coups that have destabilized countries, and that's pushed people out.
Oh, well, you would think they would want to go somewhere that wasn't imposing that on them if that were the case. But
Pete?
I think I said everything I need to say before. My goodness, you got to be kidding me. He came from Peru, or his family came from Peru to escape what he came to this country for. But
he left Peru because of capitalism and American imperialism.
Right. So he comes to America because of American imperialism. I mean, you cannot make this kind of stuff up, but this is the kind of convoluted thinking you see across the spectrum with these folks. AOC is another good example, as I said, and Bernie Sanders, who is too old to be harboring these kind of idiotic, a long time ago, he should have figured it out, but he didn't. And that tells you that he's sheerly ideological and he's got bad intentions. I'm sorry, that's all you can say about that. But, these kinds of folks, we have to keep a sharp eye out on them, and we've got to counter them, because I think it was Rush who used to talk about how when someone is giving away free stuff, that's a very appealing prospect. And a lot of people will be seduced by that. And that's what they're talking about, free stuff. But, what happens when you run out of, as they used to say, other people's money? And that's what happens with socialism every time. Go look at those S-hole countries and the extent of poverty and misery there. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why we have been the most prosperous place in the history of the world. And it's because we have been very good at making sure those guys don't gain purchase, or their theories don't gain purchase in the United States of America. And Bob, we need to be very aggressive about this. We can't be complacent. We can't simply be highlighting these things and saying, this is bad news. No, we've got to go out there big time and counter. And that's one of the reasons why, and I hate going on this screed, but nonetheless, I'll say it. I know even some of your listeners don't like Donald Trump, but one of the reasons we have Donald Trump, and God bless the fact that we have him, is because he is the one president in my lifetime Now, Reagan did a decent job of it, but Donald Trump on steroids, that's why they hate him, because he's their biggest threat to the expansion of their enterprise.
Yeah, well, he is, and we've talked. In fact, I want to talk about President Trump and where we're headed in a different direction here in a moment. But you're right. We need to get angry, and we need to get louder, and we need to get more emphatic with the voters, because, like I've said, and you've said, and I don't want to go through the rundown again of everything that's going to happen if they win Congress in 26 and then the White House in 28, and if they have the triumvirate again. What they're going to do. I mean, the United States is finished as a republic, which is why my whole thing about where would we go is not crazy thinking, because it might be, President Trump has fought back against a lot of that, and in particular what the woman Kairos said in Denver there about we need more immigrants, and we need more immigrants in office. Trump closing the border, of course, is a lifesaver, literally a lifesaver. But it's only temporary, by the way, until a new president changes policies, especially if we don't get our wall built. And we're not getting it. It's not even been discussed for 2 years now. We've secured the border with manpower. We've secured the border with Border Patrol, and got a lot more money for them and so forth. But once a new policy or a new president comes in and the policy is pull some of those guys back, suddenly it's open border time again. We didn't get our physical barrier we wanted, which is a big problem. But having said all of that, President Trump has shut the border down for now and shut this massive influx of immigrants in now. And so it will kind of stanch the tide for a little while anyway. But now I want to take us into a different direction with President Trump, and we can look at this on the screen, Pete. This isn't a video. This is just a headline. Trump team it looks like it refreshed on me. There we go. Trump team revisits regime change option as Iran diplomacy falters. And this was from the Financial Times is where that came from, that they are now talking about, rather than dragging the current regime to the quote unquote negotiating table with Witkoff and Kushner and Vance, we got to get rid of them altogether. I have long been, since this thing started, a proponent of getting rid of them altogether, because you cannot force people that have no interest whatsoever in your survival or Israel's survival to honor a signature on a piece of paper in a quote unquote deal anyway. You've got to get rid of them. But when you hear the words regime change, it sounds like we're going to go, embark upon another adventure of installing a Western style democracy in the Middle East where it wouldn't fit. So what are your thoughts on where things stand now with Iran, and if this report is accurate, where they're talking about, replacing the current regime with a more favorable one, whether that's possible or not?
Bob, you and I know that at least for a good portion of my lifetime and almost all of your lifetime, they have been the chief sponsor of terror in the world. And that's been said over and over again, but it should be, because it's true. One thing that's been accomplished by this current campaign by the president has been the elimination of the possibility for a considerable period of time for them to get a nuclear weapon, because I have no doubt, and I think the president, a lot of folks in the inner circle don't have no doubt that they would use a nuclear weapon if they got their hands on it, or get it into the hands of terrorists. This is serious as it gets, and we have an entire party, and frankly, most of the media denigrating this mindset. It's almost as if they want America to be blown up. You have to be, I think, an adult about this, and I don't mean to use language that seems to suggest that they're infantile, but their thinking is frankly magical thinking, as if there are no bad people in the world except for those in the Oval Office, right, or the people in the White House right now. But there's no evil people in the world, and we could all sing Kumbaya. Well, that stands athwart about 3,000 years of history, of civilizational history. And these guys, frankly, it's a blaring alarm signal that they cannot get, that they would do whatever they could. And look, I don't know what it would take to engage in regime change. It seems to me And, again, I don't want to engage in magical thinking, but it seems to me that at least 3/4 of the populace of Iran is vehemently opposed to a regime, would like to embrace American freedoms. This was a westernized
That's why they've been
country.
slaughtered. That's why
Yeah,
they've been slaughtered by the tens of thousands, because they dared to
Yep.
protest the regime.
This was a westernized country 50 years ago before the
Yep.
Ayatollah came into power. And, people yearn for freedom. That's a fundamental. I can't believe that simply because they're in the Middle East that they don't want freedom. But they have a significant subset of radicals out there who have their hands on the military, and the military likes getting paid. And so they're going to be doing that regime's business. I don't know where we go from here, Bob. I have no predictions, but I know this, that it's important for us to make sure that Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon, that they can't threaten their neighbors. They can't, not just, look, you talk to the Gulf states there, with the exception of one or two that are allied with Iran for a variety of different reasons. They're applauding, maybe not publicly, but they applaud the fact that we're doing just what we're doing. And it's not just Israel. Most of the Arab states are just like this. The one faction that seems to be opposed to this, not seems to be, is opposed to us, are the folks here in the United States on the progressive side. And it's, I think, a function of Trump derangement syndrome. I guarantee you, had Barack Obama done this, they'd be applauding. But it's a function of Trump derangement syndrome. You don't have to. It's not.
Well, they all promised to do this.
Yeah, you don't have to get some historian from Yale.
They're on tape. Hillary Clinton, when she was running for president, said, "I want Iran to know if I'm president, we're coming for you. We will attack you if you continue to try to develop nuclear weaponry." Joe Biden said the same thing. Barack Obama said the same thing. All the Democrats have said the same thing. We've got to stop Iran. Trump comes in and says, "Yeah, we're going to do more than lip service. We're going to stop Iran." And you're right. It's TDS all over again. It's the same thing with ICE. Barack Obama gives Tom Homan a medal for all of his great work in deportations. Donald Trump comes in and says, "Yeah, that Tom guy that's got the medal over there, you're really good at deportations. Go do more deportations." And it's Nazi. He's a,
right.
I mean, honestly, it is Trump derangement syndrome in large part. But I don't want to minimize the realities of where we are, Peter. I don't know where it goes from here. 17 lives so far, I think, have been confirmed to have been lost, American troops, and we have not put boots on the ground. 17 lives have been lost in various other ways. The most recent one was they struck a U.S. base in Jordan. My wife asked me yesterday, I thought they didn't have much of a military left. And I said, well, they don't. They don't have an Air Force anymore, and they don't have a Navy anymore, but they have ballistic missiles to beat the band, and they can fire those from Iran, and they can reach a lot of places, including the Arab states around them and American military bases, including Europe and so on and so forth. So I'm just, President Trump seems to be digging in to the point where he said, and I quote, "I don't care about the midterms." He's talking about this being resolved in maybe a year and a half, as opposed to back in February, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. We're going to hit him for 3 weeks. We're going to bring him to heel, and everything is going to be fine. Now he's talking about long game, year and a half to deal with the Iranian problem. Can we survive that long, Pete?
Well, we can survive it, but Republicans and the Trump administration can't. Politically, no, we can't. No, I don't think so. You can see that after, frankly, the first month of this engagement, there was already a considerable amount of unrest. Now, a large part of that had to do with gasoline prices, and those,
still will.
thankfully, yeah, they've moderated from their peak, but it looks like it's probably going to go up again. And so there's going to be a lot of pain here, and a lot of it's going to be political pain imposed upon the Republicans come in the fall. I think that the Democrats are probably going to have a good or decent fall, which means that that portends bad news for the country, obviously. And then there's going to be a fight in Congress to restrain Trump from doing the things that, frankly, we need to do. Kicking the can down the road has been the chief, I think, strategy of Democrats, and it's served them well. Nobody likes conflict, and everybody likes putting off realities. It's like, the kid who, puts off doing his homework until the very end, or puts off eating his carrots or peas until the very end. But that's where we are right now. So that's one of the many reasons why I applaud President Trump. He takes on the hard cases and he understands somebody's got to do it. And I tell you, part of it is, and it sounds corny, but I've met with the guy, and this is the assessment I had of him 10 years ago, because he loves this country desperately. And he doesn't care what people, he's got a cushion. Let's face it. This guy's the most famous man in the world and was one of the most famous even before he became president. And he's a billionaire. So it's not as if, he's concerned about the things that may be driving other politicians. But he has a tremendous love for this country and wants to make sure that we are safe and that freedom flourishes.
Peter, I want to pivot a little bit if I can, but I'm going to take a short time out here before I do it. I want to ask you a question. This is more of it's a DEI. There were hearings in the Congress last week in various committees on DEI, and President Trump, of course, trying to minimize, if not eliminate DEI altogether because of what it is. It is racism. Without any qualifiers, it is racism. But I'm gonna need a quick time out here while I remind people about something that is coming up on Saturday, August 1st. And I want to make sure everybody knows in Northeast Ohio about the great folks at Middleburg Heights GOP. The Middleburg Heights Republican Picnic, their annual picnic, is coming up. And guess who is a co-sponsor this year with Middleburg Heights GOP? That would be yours truly and, strictly speaking, Unfiltered. That means that admission prices for Middleburg Heights GOP members, $25, and this is going to be extraordinary food. Pete, you've been there. You were there with me, I think, a year ago. It is a fantastic event with great people, lots of food. You are not going to walk away from there hungry. That I can promise you. We're going to have some speeches. We're going to have some patriotism, some games, some camaraderie. It's going to be great. But Middleburg GOP members and insiders, meaning my paid subscribers, the unfiltered insiders of Strictly Speaking, are $25, and non-paid members or non-insiders, meaning just guests who want to come, are $30. So I'm honored to be asked to co-host this event with John Tamburello and the great people at Middleburg Heights GOP. I ask all of my listeners and followers and viewers and subscribers to please contact Meg LaJoy. You see that phone number on the screen there. Contact her at 440-725-2243 by the 24th, which is what, Friday? Or is that, what is that, Friday or Saturday? But contact Meg if you could, please, and let her know so they can get an accurate head count so they know how much chicken and burgers and food and everything else to buy. It's going to be a great time, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And while I'm on the subject of promoting great things, let me remind everybody about, if you've got an auto need, hell, if you've got an engine need of any kind. I told you the other day, I saw somebody dropping off their rascal scooter to Charlie because it wasn't running right. Charlie can fix just about anything that's got an engine or a CPU in it. Charlie's Auto Repair, if you're in Northeast Ohio, 216-470-0170. Charlie's Auto Repair is a foundational sponsor and partner of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. So happy to have him on board. He's MAGA all the way. He will give you a discount of 10% on all of your work. If you are either a veteran, current active military, if you are a first responder, or if you just have a concealed carry license. If you are a CCW holder, you'll get 10% off. Check Charlie out. He does amazing work. And you don't find honest mechanics very much in today's world. When you find one, you cling to them for dear life. It's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. 216-470-0170. Charlie's Auto Repair. All right, Peter, DEI is racist. We know this. Some people on the left, however, cling to DEI, even if it costs them their life. That might sound extreme. It's not. Not when you hear people like this next person I want you to hear from, Pete. This is Representative Summer Lee. And Representative Summer Lee has declared that there needs to be more Black doctors, regardless of whether or not they are qualified, because they can provide better care simply because of empathy. Now, I don't know the last time empathy performed an operation. I don't know the last time empathy made a diagnosis and provided a cure or a treatment, but nonetheless, here's what she said.
Having all white male doctors is just as bad for the medical profession as having all white male congressmen is to our government. Let me just say, I have a Black doctor and I sought my Black doctor out. In fact, Black doctors are in high demand because Black patients know that culturally competent care can be the difference between care and cure or life and death. That's just what it is. Republicans cry DEI and say it's unfair. They say we should only rely on so-called objective standards for medical competence. But objective according to who? You cannot standardize test your way into empathy or taking people's pain seriously or cultural competency. MCAT scores don't translate to better care for Black people automatically. Having all
MCAT scores don't equate to better care when cultural competency and empathy are concerned. Pete, you're in a position to answer this better than I can because you're a Black man. Do you want a Black doctor who has more empathy, or do you want a doctor who has more qualifications?
Blank empathy. Give me qualifications under all circumstances. And again, Bob, you're talking to somebody who is, we have hearings on these things at the Civil Rights Commission. We actually have on this, the whole issue of Black doctors and cultural competency and all that stuff. And lo and behold, when you look at the stats, if you're going to go with cultural competency as opposed to medical competency, you're going to have a lot more dead Black people or very sick Black people. And I don't know why, Summer Lee, again, a good example of why it is that we shouldn't have cultural competency as a test. We should have actual intelligence and the ability to do the job. That was one of the more moronic narratives or comments that you're going to hear. And that's saying something. You know that, Bob. You watch plenty of these floor speeches in Congress, and they become increasingly unhinged and really, really stupid. But that is dangerous when you have something like that. I think I cited to you certain cases where you had DEI engineers, and they were hired not necessarily because, and I'm not saying they were necessarily poor, but you don't want you want the best under all circumstances. And when skin color or sex becomes one of the hiring criterion, you've got problems. You have then sublimated competence to some irrelevant criteria. So under any circumstances, we shouldn't be embracing this kind of mindset because it is dangerous. We want the best under all circumstances. Equal treatment. Martin Luther King was an icon for a reason. Equal treatment under the law, treating everybody the same way. But she's doing just the opposite. She's regressed 70 years to before, the I have a dream speech.
You know what's interesting about all of that, Pete? You addressed it from the standpoint of what she said, which is that, it's going to lead to a lot more dead Black people. If Black doctors are in demand because Black people know that they need somebody who understands them culturally and has cultural empathy with them rather than competency. You can talk about it from that standpoint, and correctly so. But the one part that you left out is the discriminatory nature of what she said. Because to get more empathy by getting more Black doctors into medical schools, absent qualifying MCAT scores, you are by definition going to be pushing people out who do have qualified, would have qualified and did have the necessary scores and all of the other credentials to get into medical school. In other words, there are young white doctors or would-be doctors who can't go to med school because she wants more Black doctors. It's just like the pilot question that Charlie Kirk raised. Can Black people fly planes just as well as white people? Duh, of course they can. But if they are chosen to go to flight school and to be hired because they're Black and they're not quite as good as maybe some of their white counterparts, that's when Charlie Kirk said, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to look in the cockpit, and I'm going to see a Black pilot, and I'm going to wonder, am I safe? Is this guy one of the best, or did he get brought in simply because they had a quota? The same thing with what Summer Lee just said with doctors. There are white would-be medical students, Pete, who are going to be shut out because of this type of attitude.
Yeah, and there are a lot of them too. This is not a small thing. And the point of this is it's not okay to discriminate under any circumstances. I think that's poisonous to our society under any circumstances. But it's one thing when you discriminate in favor of having a kids show sponsor or kids show host. But when you're talking about the medical profession or engineering profession, I forgot who it was who said, and I know I kind of adopted it in some of my speeches because it's stark, but I remember that someone either said it publicly or told me that every time he goes down the jetway of any airport to get onto a plane, when you go down to the jetway and just before you get onto the plane, you can look to the left and you can see the cockpit. You
Yeah.
can see who's piloting the plane.
Yeah.
Or once you get on, sometimes that door is open and you can look in. And this person told me that they look in this, and this person happens to be a quote unquote person of color. And they said that every time they get on the plane or before they get on the plane, they take a look at that just to see who the pilot is. And, that's where we are right now. And for those who say, oh, that's racist or that's discriminatory, well, you know what? The reason for that is because the kind of mindset Summer Lee has naturally compels people under circumstances where life and death are at play to make those kinds of determinations. Is the best actually behind that wheel? Is the best actually operating on me? You don't know that. You can't be sure. Now, I happen to think in most cases those people are confident, but because of what she says, any rational actor is going to say, I'm not necessarily sure they were chosen on the basis of competency. And that does a huge disservice. That makes people discriminate against quote unquote people of color or against females or others. It's amazing to me people can't see it. As kids, we understand that. You don't have to have any kind of great education or anything else. It's intuitive. You get it.
Well, and you know what else it does, Peter? To me, I think there's an impact on the self-worth of the Black doctor.
Yeah, can I stop you right there? I've said this a million times, and you're exactly right. I've been practicing law for nearly 50 years. And for a long time, I was the first Black, attorney at this place, that place, and all this other stuff. And then I would see later other Black attorneys. And what I noticed among some, not all, but a few, is what I would characterize, and I mentioned this to others, it seemed as if they didn't have any confidence in the statements that they would make or the briefs they would write. They weren't necessarily sure. Whereas if you busted your butt to get into Harvard, and you knew the only reason you got there by the skin of your teeth is because you worked your butt off and you got phenomenal grades, you're going to have the kind of competence and confidence that would necessarily engender. But if you even suspect that the reason you got into a particular place is not because of competence, but because somebody made a judgment based on race, sex, or some other kind of irrelevant factor, you're not going to have the kind of competence to do what you do. And what happens very often is those folks don't flunk out, but sometimes they flunk out. But if they graduate, those folks sometimes don't do as well in their chosen profession as a result of that lack of confidence. It's difficult to measure, no doubt about it. But I can tell you anecdotally, I've observed it in my nearly 50 years of practice. And I'm sorry if people get upset about that, but in their hearts, they know, as they used to say about Barry Goldwater, in their hearts, they know that's right.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said all of that, Pete, because that's exactly where I was going with it, and you've experienced it firsthand, and you've seen it, so it's even better than what I was going to say. And the only other, I guess, add-on to that would be, because you and I have been talking sports with one another for years and years and years as well. The Rooney Rule is another example of this. To me, when a Black, the Rooney Rule, for those who don't know, in the National Football League, anytime there is an opening for one of the higher level positions, general manager, head coach, or I think offensive and defensive coordinators, if there's an opening on a team, the Rooney Rule says you have to interview at least, I don't know if it's 2 or whatever it is, minority
it's usually
candidates.
1.
Is it 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
There has to be at least 1. Yeah.
Which is to me, I think, insulting. Because you call somebody and say, hey, you did a great job for your team last year. We'd like to see if you'd like to interview with us. That guy on the other end of that phone is going to be like, are you calling me because you really think much of me? Or are you calling me because it's the Rooney Rule? Because you have to, and if you get hired, am I the best? Or are they trying to make a social justice statement here? And that's just so insulting, I think, to the people who are benefiting from it, the people of color. I can't speak to it because I'm as white as a ghost, but I just have to feel like I want to know if you're hiring me because I'm the best and you really think I'm the best for this job, or are you hiring me because you're trying to make a social statement or meet a quota that a company has put in place? It would bother me
Sure.
not to know.
Yeah. And I think that's human nature, that most people, they second guess themselves. Now, some people wouldn't care because, again, that's human nature. Some people wouldn't care. Just like, out of nepotism, for example. Hunter Biden doesn't care that he's a moron. He just knows that he gets the fruits of being the son of another moron who happened to be elected president. Okay? But there are a lot
Ronnie
of people
James
out
doesn't
there-
know if he's actually any good or not. We know he probably does, but
Yeah.
he knows why he is
Because
worried.
that's clear. That's clear. I mean, you can't fake that. You're either good or not, but there are a lot of professions where it's difficult to discern who's the best and who's second best or third best and who's completely incompetent until there's been a lot of trial and error. And unfortunately, that error in certain professions can be devastating. But the bottom line is, I think, from the standpoint of having a sane culture and for having, trying to think of the right word, but it's escaping me. I think we don't want to have anybody wonder whether or not they got a position or they had an advancement or a benefit as a result of some immutable characteristic, even if it's an nepotism, which has been going on for a long time. We want to have and there's no really real way of legislating against that, nor would I. I think that if your son inherits your business, that's fine, or benefits as a result of the fact that he was hired because you own a business or whatever it may be. I have no problem with that because it really doesn't foreclose anybody on the basis of an immutable characteristic. But nonetheless, who wants to be in a society like that? But that's the society that many of our elites have constructed for us. And we're still, despite the fact that we've got SSFA versus Harvard and other Supreme Court decisions and a number of other policies that have since eroded that type of discrimination, if not eliminated it. I think that's the kind of approach, meaning, as Martin Luther King said, content of character versus color of skin. That was maybe the best formulation ever. And I think if we adhere to that, we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, well, and although that left the building, it seems like a long time ago. Social justice has replaced content of character, because we have to make up for some things. Historic discrimination, historically bad discrimination against one means we now have to flip the tables and historically discriminate against the other side, the ones who were doing it before. And it's just really a tragic thing to see unfold, honestly, for everybody, including those who actually get the jobs that they were not perhaps qualified for, because they'll never know. And number two, they might do harm in the position they're in, especially if they're being hired for a position that has an impact on public safety. Like you said, Charlie Kirk talked about exactly what you said. Walking down the jetway, looking into the cockpit, if I see a black pilot there, I wonder, is he the best, or is he there because United said in next year's hiring goals is to hire 50% black and 50% women, to balance out our roster of pilots.
And it's not American. One of the reasons why you have people emigrating to this country is because of the principle of equal treatment under the law. People want to know that society makes its decisions based on neutral factors that are based on competency, character, as opposed to immutable characteristics that you have no control over. That's just, everyone gets it from the time you're in kindergarten. You understand that's fundamentally unfair. Is probably too milquetoast a word, frankly. It should be resisted under all circumstances. One of the reasons I've spent more than a quarter of a century on the Civil Rights Commission, because I abhor it. I can't stand it. Many of us have been the targets or objects of discrimination. We understand what its effect is, and we don't want to have that perpetuated throughout society, regardless of who's doing discriminating, who's being discriminated against.
Yep. 20 plus years on the Civil Rights Commission. How many days have you spent on that commission as its chair?
0 yet. And that's because the left thinks I'm the Antichrist. I'm not going to disabuse them of that, frankly. I kind of like that. But we're going to be battling it. And frankly, that it doesn't matter, because I think, it does matter in many respects, and I don't want to get into that. But because I know the ins and outs of the commission so well, and because I am an irascible son of a bitch, I still wield a significant amount of power over the commission. So, and it's kind of cool being because I've been in this position all the time, and I've realized over a period of time, it's kind of cool being the guy who is so objectionable to the left that he can under no circumstances get anywhere near the levers of power. I kind of like that,
I like that too. I have to, and it suits you. It suits you. Not everybody could have that attitude, but it suits you to a T. Peter, great stuff. This Saturday, you and I, right? Sharing a stage again?
Exactly right. And McFan, right? Are we going to be at the
Yeah.
Thirsty Cowboy?
Yeah, I believe so. Thirsty Cowboy
good.
this Saturday, 9 o'clock.
Lisa Woods does a phenomenal job. I love you and I have been out there before, not together, but separately. And I've been going to McFan for a dozen more years. I can't remember when I first started, but phenomenal folks out there. Please come out to see us. I love seeing those folks out there, great patriots. And they know to take me with a big grain of salt, because I usually ramble about something. I go off on a tangent, and I'll be talking about my football career at some point.
I think we had a great event a few weeks back at Brecksville. We did at the Brecksville.
I was a little off. I want to apologize to my Brecksville friends. For whatever reason, I can't remember exactly what transpired. I was probably extremely busy at work or something. But you were phenomenal. You were just amazing. But to my Brecksville friends, and again, I always say when I go out to Brecksville, and because I have such a pathetic athletic career, but I like digging it into them. In 1970, I broke their backs by returning an interception for a touchdown for 47 yards.
It was the first thing you said. The first thing you said when you took the microphone is you reminded everybody of that, which is
I'm Al Bundy. I'm Al Bundy. 4 touchdowns against Polk High, interception against Brecksville.
Good stuff. Peter, I will see you on Saturday at Medina County Friends and Neighbors, McFan. And hopefully I'll see you on the 1st as well at Middleburg Heights GOP Picnic. It would be great to have you there as well.
I won't be there because I'm going to be with my family in Ocean City, Maryland. My grandkids are coming over to visit, and we are going to have big time fun. If you hear of any disturbances on the East Coast, it's most likely the Kirsanow clan.
All the more reason to make sure that you're there on Saturday at McFan then. That'll be your next best chance to see Pete live. Pete, thank you, my friend. All right, there you go. That's Peter Kirsanow. Great stuff from him as always. I'm going to remind you of something else that's really, really important to me, and that is Americans for Prosperity. And I want you to consider becoming a volunteer, becoming a supporter, doing something to support AFP Ohio. Our friends at AFP Ohio, they are foundational sponsors of this program, but they're also doing great work trying to get people out there. You see what they're doing on the screen right now, right? Door knocking, passing out literature, trying to help inform and educate people who may or may not be super excited about voting in this midterm coming up in November. We've got to get out there and crank out the vote. All right. People like John Husted need support. People like Vivek Ramaswamy, they need support. And there are a lot of conservative Republican doors out there doors with conservative Republicans behind them who don't know if they're going to go and vote. They've heard this, that, or the other thing, and they've been misinformed. We need to get out there and let all of them know the importance of getting out to the polls and voting for these conservative Republican candidates, or else we run the risk of Ohio turning blue. We cannot let it happen. And we're talking about both the governor's race. We're talking about, having Sherrod Brown back in representing us in the United States Senate again. We simply cannot have it. So consider volunteering. The site you see in front of you is afpaction.com, afpaction.com. Okay. You could also, though, go, just to make sure that we're covering all of our bases, you can also go to BuckeyeBlueprint.com to help be a volunteer and a supporter of making Ohio the best state that it can be, one of the leaders in the country. We talk about the red states of Tennessee, Florida, and Texas being the destination where people are moving from blue states to red states. We want Ohio to be at the top of that list, and BuckeyeBlueprint.com will have a lot of great ways for you to help achieve that. So please join us there at BuckeyeBlueprint.com and at AFPaction.com. All right. So great stuff by Peter Kirsanow. I'm really looking forward to reading the chat when the show is over a little bit later today, because I can save the chat now, which is kind of cool. But I would really love for you to include some of what you said in the chat in the comments. So I'm going to ask, and I know I'm asking a lot of our core audience, which is here during the live stream. Obviously, there's usually only a couple hundred people or less who watch the live stream. It blows up to 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 later on as people watch the replays. So what I'm asking you live streamers who are already my core to do, though, is live chatters, I should say, do me a favor and take some of what you said in the live chat and put it in the comment section to foment discussion there. I want to try to grow what's called, sorry, I'm looking for my music here at the same time. There we go. What is called engagement. The more comments you make, the more times you hit the thumbs up button on these episodes, the more times you hit the notification button, the longer watch time. You know, if you watch it for 3 minutes, thank you. If you watch it for 30, love you. If you watch it for 2 hours, you're helping me so much, helping me grow this so that we can get this thing to reach more people and have more of an impact. All of that engagement helps the algorithm say that this is worth watching to other people. So please engage. Put some of what you're putting in the live chat in the comment section so we can add some post live stream, post live chat viewers to get them engaged in this as well, those who are watching on the replay. So that's a lot. And I do appreciate and respect, your time. And don't forget, press play and walk away. If you don't have time to watch the show over and over again or to watch previous shows, find one of them, push play, and just let it sit. Okay? Let it sit. Plug your phone in so you don't drain your battery out too much, but let it sit. And like I said, the more time spent watching, the better it will be for me as well. Let me hit this again real quick before we go. Please, if you're going to be at the Middleburg Heights GOP picnic, it is well worth your price of admission. All of the food, like I said, the presentations. I will be live speaking as a co-host of this thing. We're going to have just a great time. Bring the family. We want to put together some sort of a family barbecue that we can do during the summer and have a great time and share some of our ideas and our visions with one another, but it's just going to be a great time. It's August 1st, Saturday, so not this coming Saturday, but the following, for 2 hours from 12 to 2 at the Middleburg Heights Community Center Park Pavilion. I am the co-host of this year's event along with Middleburg Heights GOP. And like I said, discounted admission for all of those who are part of my Insiders Club, as well as the Middleburg Heights GOP members. So please consider coming out and having a great time with us on Saturday. Don't forget to contact Meg, as you see that number on your screen, 440-725-2243. So make sure you RSVP with her so that they get an accurate head count and they know how much food and drink to bring. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget, get in the comments and tell me if it couldn't be the U.S. for whatever reason. If it wasn't the U.S., where would you go? Are you with Pete? Are you a Swiss Miss or Mister in the making? Something to think about. Thanks, everybody. Be well, be safe, and stay free. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.